can't just cut ourselves off from West Africa, where this disease is raging. Our medical experts tell us that the best way to stop this disease is to stop it at its source, before it spreads even wider and becomes even more difficult to contain. Trying to seal off an entire region of the world, if that were even possible, could actually make the situation worse.
All right, folks, that was Barack Obama, and this is going to be Chris Farrell, Director of Investigations for Judicial Watch. And Chris, I got to tell you, when I saw you guys break the news that your investigation has uncovered that President Obama has a plan to allow not just to keep travel going between the U.S. and those Ebola-stricken countries, but to allow Ebola-stricken non-Americans into the U.S. for quote-unquote treatment. What is that all about?
It's not a matter of just allowing them in. This is an effort to actively medically evacuate people here and then treat them. So it's even a little more aggressive than you first stated it. And they're going to do this, or they're planning to do it, by essentially waiving all the normal laws and rules governing the introduction of persons into the country with dangerous, contagious diseases. They're just going to parole them in. And this is dangerous stuff they're playing with. Naturally, they're going to wait until after November 4th. But you wait and see once this election's over, the gloves come off. You're going to see Obama in full, all-out attack mode because he's got 2 years left, and it's make or break time for his agenda.
Well, all right, under what authority is he going to do this? Will this be an executive order? And how did you find this out? What are your sources?
We have extraordinary sources. I have personally met with, discussed, seen, heard, all five senses involved in this one. It's for real. It's solid. I'm not going to give the source up because, well.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to name a source. I just was wondering where you got it from. Okay.
Firsthand.
Believe me, I have nothing but the utmost respect for the integrity and ability of Judicial Watch. I think you guys all know that. So this will be. Where on earth would they put them? We only have a couple of hospitals, as has been evidenced, that are capable of treating people with Ebola. I know it's probably speculation, but where on earth would he put them?
Well, I think that's part of the problem is that, as they're trying to work through this end run around the existing immigration laws, they've got a few weeks or even a couple of months to work out the details. And so, there's this policy initiative to do this, and then there's this back channel effort of, okay, well, what hospitals, what medical facilities, where, how many can we take, all those sorts of details. But the legal mechanism to get past the existing prohibition on entry of persons into the country is kind of the first hurdle for them.
All right, let's move on to something else that you guys are talking about today, and that's your lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security for records relating to back in January. The Department of Homeland Security posted basically a solicitation of escort services for unaccompanied alien children. And sure enough, that seems to be that it was in anticipation of what was to come and what came to fruition with the influx of illegal teenagers and children across the southern border. It seems as if they knew it was going to happen. Is that where you're going with this?
It's not where I'm going. It's what their documents say. 6 or 7 months before the manufactured crisis of the Obama administration of these kids coming across the border, they were letting contracts because they realized they were going to have a social services and health services nightmare with unaccompanied kids, filling up detention centers. And what do you do with them and how do you care for them? Setting aside the political lunacy that's involved in all this, how in the world could we have an obligation to take care of these kids? And even these folks at the Obama administration realized that. So they let a contract looking for those services. And surprise, surprise, 6 to 7 months later, this human wave of children heads north. My personal opinion is that this was all coordinated and prompted by groups like La Raza going down to Honduras and Guatemala and essentially organizing and promoting this.
And you're looking, Chris, you're looking for all records relating to this, correct?
Right, because this wasn't just this wasn't spontaneous combustion. This was an
Right.
effort thought out and planned.
Yep, seems that way. Chris, great work. Keep it up. We'll follow this along with everything else you guys are doing at Judicial Watch. Appreciate talking to you today.
Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, Chris Farrell, ladies and gentlemen, Director of Investigations for Judicial Watch. Now, before we go, should the U.S. have a travel ban on West African nations? That's a question we've been asking. I want you to go to newsmax.com/polls to cast your vote, newsmax.com/polls. Now, we're going to come back and we're going to talk with Alabama Congressman Mo Brooks after the break. But first, I want us all to check in on the Connecticut gubernatorial race with our countdown to the midterms update. Here it comes.
The main candidates are the same. The fact that it's a toss-up is the same. The only thing that's different about Connecticut's 2014 gubernatorial race is that one of the candidates is already governor. Incumbent and Democrat Dan Malloy knows his competition well. He and Tom Foley squared off in 2010. That race was tight too. Only 6,400 votes separated Foley from victory, and it took a week before the race could be called. This time around, Malloy is able to run on what he's accomplished for the state, especially during times of crisis. Following the Sandy Hook school shooting, Malloy worked to get gun control legislation passed at record speed. He also saw the state through the devastating Hurricane Sandy. Foley is promising to use his business expertise and time he served in Iraq helping to restore that nation's economy to get Connecticut headed in what he calls, quote, a more promising direction. However, voters may be leaning more toward experience versus expertise. Recent poll numbers swing this race in Malloy's favor. A public policy polling survey gave Malloy an 8-point lead over Foley, the largest yet. The same poll also provided some insight into the role the independent candidate, Joe Visconti, may play this time around. If you remove Visconti from the survey, Malloy's lead shrinks to just 6 points, indicating Visconti is siphoning votes away from Foley. But that's just one set of numbers. The Quinnipiac poll conducted at the same time puts this race at a virtual tie.